Welcome back guys to Man Up Reacts, and in this video we'll be taking a look at a recent debate that took place on Piers Morgan Uncensored. And just so you know, for Andrew Wilson to pull off this face in a debate, something crazy has to be going on in there. And not only that, the liberal who caused him to pull off that face gave such a stupid answer that even if you ask someone who's in 5th grade, they will give a better answer than her. So let's start the video without wasting any time.
I just think that feminism has absolutely destroyed so much of what I hold dear in life, and it's held me back more than it's helped me. It's one of the reasons I started looking into the history and investigating it for myself. And I think it's just created a world where we now have a 2-income economy. And for women like me who do want to prioritize motherhood, it makes it extremely hard. It just makes it financially difficult. I faced tons of social pressure. Had my first daughter at 20, wanted to stay home. Everyone around me, even the so-called Christian conservative women, told me it was a terrible idea. You can't do that. You have to bring the baby to daycare. You're going to put yourself at risk. You know, your husband's going to hurt you. You're going to be abused if you don't have your own money and your own career. And I think it's backwards. I think it's the most inefficient, stupid thing we've ever come up with. And that in the future, people will look back at the feminist experiment as a goofy time in history where we tried this wild experiment that failed miserably, and thank God it's over.
Wow. Okay. Well, Clementine Ford, I'm sure that you agree with every word of that, don't you?
Firstly, I'm very glad that you're happily married. It's great. You know, a lot of women are not happily married and they find it very difficult to leave marriages, particularly because of the financial strain. So good for you. I do think that your historical understanding of feminism is extremely skewed. The idea that somehow we've only created a 2-income household because feminism has tried to destroy the world is historically inaccurate, in large part. Well, firstly, you're also talking about feminism from your very, and when I say limited, I'm not trying to insult you, but the limited perspective of feminism in America and the understanding of the economy in America. It's not taking into account the global reality of the fact that women have always worked, women still continue to work. Women, for the most part, produce the majority of the world's underpaid, if, you know, drastically underpaid labor. When you talk about a 2-income household being somehow instituted by feminism, you're failing to take into account that even in America, you know, the kind of the glamorization of this golden age of marriage in the 1950s to the early 1960s, which the marriage historian Stephanie Coots calls the long decade. This coincided with an increase in women in the workplace. So it's not as if there was this golden age where women where married women, weren't working. For a lot of that, actually, the labor that is required to support the middle class has always been relied on for poor and disenfranchised women, largely in America, black women.
All right. Look,
for a start.
Let
me just finish.
We all have to speed things up a little bit.
And the economy, the downturn in the economy, the boom that happened after the Second World War was unsustainable. It was a wonderful time between around 1940 to 1970 for white working class men in particular. And then it began to
but I have a question for you.
One of the reasons why women had to go into the workforce was because they had to help support their families.
Okay, I have a question for you, Clementine. It's a very simple question, but I think it'll be an interesting question to ask you. What is a woman?
I'm not going down the path of debating trans women with you.
I didn't mention trans women. I asked you what a woman is.
Okay, I'll tell you. I know that because this is your tactic. This is what you do. What is a woman?
It shouldn't be controversial.
I'll tell you what a woman is. A woman is someone who has at least at one point in her life felt scared of a man.
Sorry?
You guys never want to talk about that.
Wait, hang on.
You guys never want to talk about that.
So any man who's ever felt afraid of another man is a woman?
No.
That's
not what I'm saying.
This is exactly why you're wearing that shirt that says repeal. You should put the 19th under it. It's unbelievable. What are you talking about? A woman, anybody who has ever at one point been afraid of a man, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Do you have an actual argument here?
Would you let me finish speaking? Or
how long is it going to take for you to finish?
Just a quick reminder guys, if you're new to this channel, then please make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this.
Do you work, Rachel?
No.
You don't make any money from your podcasting?
I make some money, but I do maybe a
you do some form of paid employment.
Yes. First of all, my children are grown up now. I'm 44 years old, so I had my first one at 20. They're grown up. They're moved out.
Yeah.
But I work still very, very part-time, maybe a couple hours a week at most.
But do you have
Because my primary responsibility is to my husband.
But you've got 5 children, right? Is that correct? And they're all grown up and all moved out, or you've still got some young children?
The youngest one. The youngest
Yeah, we
ones
still have
are
a couple
teenagers.
at home. And by the way, just making an
Okay.
argument from
So
hypocrisy.
can I just
Point
ask
out the
you?
hypocrisy.
Can I just ask you? Do you find, even with the small amount of part-time work that you do, which you do get paid for, do you find satisfaction from that? Do you get satisfaction from that work?
It's not the money, because Andrew makes far more than I make. I make a very, very tiny amount of money off of, my book, and a couple of appearances here and there might sell a few books. It's practically nothing. If I was doing it for the money, it'd be a waste of even the couple of hours. But what I would say to that is, we're not against women doing other things. So if you look at the Bible and the Proverbs 31 woman, she does a lot of things. She's out buying land. She's making decisions. She's doing all kinds of things. The difference is that she's doing them under the purview of the guidance and leadership of her husband and for her family, not for a corporation, not for her own glory, not for her own ambition.
A lot of that depends
what
on whether or not you have faith in the Bible, which obviously not everyone does. But the reason I asked you those questions wasn't because I was trying to set you up or anything like that. It doesn't surprise me that you would get some satisfaction. To me, the point of the question wasn't about the money. It's about the work. It's about the passion that you put into it. And the reason I asked was because a multi-year study done by Adrienne Freck and Sarah Damaske, found that the mental health of women who worked full-time after the birth of their first child was significantly higher than those who didn't have paid work at all. So I think that, taking into account the fact that for a lot of women, and this is also what Betty Friedan found when she wrote The Feminine Mystique, and Stephanie Coontz backed this up as well in her book, The Way We Never Were, which is a history of the
But are you
American
married,
family.
Clementine? I've no idea about your situation, but are you married? Do you have kids? What's your deal?
I've got a kid. I'm not married.
Okay, but you have a...
I'm a single mother.
Okay.
And I have a very excellent relationship with my son's father. We co-parent together very well, but we're not married. We don't live together. I certainly have found, since having a child, I mean, I've always worked anyway, but I've been working since I was 13 years old, but I've always found that work for me is very satisfying. And this, what I'm saying is that these are the findings of multiple historians, anthropologists, scientists, that
these are the findings of diehard feminists who are only investigating this from a feminist point of view. They're already sold on the ideology, and what they do is they cherry pick data.
Is a world-renowned historian. She's not specifically a feminist. She's a world-renowned historian, and these were her findings as well. So you cannot deny the reality. If when you look at the facts,
women
you cannot deny the reality.
Anything else? We're not saying women can never leave the house. We're not saying you can't have other things in your life that you find fulfilling.
You're suggesting that the primary role for a woman, and that, in your faith, I'm not going to discredit that, but your faith in God says that this is what you believe God says that you should be doing, but that the primary role for a woman is that she should be staying at home, that she should be devoted to her husband, she should be devoted to her children. The facts do not back that up. The facts of familial satisfaction don't back that up.
Well, hang on. Okay, let me jump in. Hang on.
Yes, they do.
Hang on. Sorry, Clementine. I think you've chosen the wrong moment to say that. You've clearly got a woman here on the panel where the facts completely back that up. She's had a lot of kids. She's very happily married. She loves
that there would be exceptions to the rule, but statistically speaking,
you've just literally got one sitting there in front of you.
That's completely untrue, though. For her to say that this one study, that this one survey is going to tell us something. First of all, we have two.
It was a multi-year study.
Let me ask you, Clementine. Let me ask Clementine. When you were you married or not? I can't remember what you said. Were you married?
No, I've never been married.
Okay, but when you were with your partner before you broke up, who did the household chores and stuff like that? I mean, how did you delineate that as a feminist?
It was a struggle, because even in lots of supposedly egalitarian households, again, the data backs up that even women who make more money than their partners or their spouses tend to do more unpaid domestic labor. Who did
most of the domestic chores?
In my house?
Yeah.
Me.
You did.
Me.
Okay. And
Yeah.
Rachel, who does most of them in yours?
That's the reality for.
Well,
for
hang on.
For most
Rachel,
women
who does the domestic stuff in your house, Rachel?
I do absolutely all of it. And the thing I want to say to
So you're very
Clementine
similar.
is,
I mean, it seems to me you're both.
I care far less about women's fulfillment in careers than I care about children and how they're being raised. And I want her to justify to me why we should be paying low-wage daycare workers to raise our children rather than doing it ourselves. How does it make sense to take your duty of motherhood and simply put it on a different random woman? How does that system make sense? Why should we tell women to do that?
If you would like to stay at home and raise your children, that's
You're not answering
totally
my
fine.
You're not answering the question.
My question is,
Answer the
how is
question.
it good for children
it's a question
for
of
them
choice.
to be raised by
It's a question of
daycare
choice.
No, it's
workers?
not a
It's
question
actually
of
not
choice.
worse.
No.
It's not
Why
worse for
is it
children
better outcomes?
to be
Why
raised
is
by
it
working
better?
mothers. That's
Why is it
also
better?
the facts back
Why?
that up. There is no
No, they
study that
don't.
suggests
There's
that women
no
who
facts.
work
Listen, lady,
raise
there are
children
no
who are
facts
less happy.
on
That is
there
not
are
true.
no facts on planet Earth that back up that single mother households have better outcomes. That's one. Two,
Or that raising
outsourcing
kids
your
in daycare
specifically
is
hang on,
better
hang on,
than
hang on. Let me
specifically
finish,
mentioned
lady,
single mothers.
lady,
That's
lady.
you bringing
Let me
your
lady,
that's you bringing your
lady. If you
judgment in.
outsource the raising of your children, you're already making yourself a single mother. Just so you know. Here's what's going on. Just so that you understand.
Are you a single
Let
father
me
because
finish,
your
lady,
wife
lady,
raises your
let me
children
finish.
for you?
Lady,
Excuse me, don't call me lady.
Can
Don't
you
call
let me
me
finish?
lady.
Can
I have a
anybody
name.
finish a point? Can anybody finish a point? Or
I don't know.
only
Do you have a
Are-
point?
Are
You don't
only
seem to
you
be
allowed
making
to?
one.
I'm trying to make one. So
You don't
anyway,
seem
if
to
you
be making a
outsource-
point, Andrew.
If you outsource your children's raising to strangers, answer Rachel's question and tell her how that makes more sense than having the child raised by their own biological mother. Actually answer.
Well, in my case, it makes more sense because I need to make money to pay my bills to raise my child.
It's
But in many other
counterintuitive.
families, it makes.
What if you
in many
depended
other
on your
families,
husband's
it makes-
income?
Do you see the problem of
Now
how
it's
we
my
ended up
turn to
here?
finish. Now it's my turn to finish. But actually, again, if you knew what you were talking about, if you actually read anything about the data on these things rather than just reaching into your gut for a feeling that feels
Let's
true
go
to
over the
you.
data.
The data.
Show me the data that shows that if you outsource
the data
childcare,
shows
it's
us
better.
There was a father
The
in the
data
household.
shows
You
us-
Let me
wouldn't have
bring
that
Emily
issue.
in
There
because
is
Emily's
no-
been again.
there is
Emily's
no-
been. Hang
there
on.
is no statistical data to support the fact that children raised by mothers who work are less happy than children raised by
Yes,
mothers who
there
stay at
is.
home.
There's tons
I
of
would
data.
never try and stop Rachel,
There's so
your wife,
much
from staying home to raise
overwhelming
your
data.
children. That's her
There-
choice. That's
Hey,
her choice
listen,
to do that.
there is
But
so
it's not,
much
it's not true that
overwhelming
that's because
data.
that's her choice.
All right,
that
let me
values
let me
you
bring
is
Emily
filibuster,
in.
all
lady.
other women.
Let me bring Emily
Just
in.
filibuster.
Piers knows that.
Emily was trying to say
Piers,
something.
you don't want your daughters and your nieces being forced to stay at home to raise families.
I don't want-
You
There
don't
is-
want
I
that.
don't want-
You
There's
want them to have choice.
I don't
overwhelming
want my
evidence
kids
that
to
the
be forced to
outcome
do
for
anything.
children-
No, Emily.
It is scary that most of the arguments that she made didn't really make any sense. I would argue almost all the things that she said didn't really make any sense. First argument, that anybody who's ever felt scared of a man is a woman. What? That was just dumb. And then again, this argument that data suggests, and lying about the data, that data suggests that single motherhood is better than parents, two-parent household. What? At this point, I think liberals are just lying to just, get more attention and get more views. I don't think she really knew the data. And from the look on her face when she was corrected again and again, I think she was unprepared for this debate. And Andrew Wilson, as always, was ready with the facts, and he hit her the moment she started speaking lies. I think that's also one of the reasons why people like Andrew Wilson. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe for more videos like this.